Hi, and welcome again to It's Not Rocket Science, 5 questions over coffee. I'm here, actually not with coffee right at the moment. I've got some water in front of me because I've had probably way too much coffee already this morning. Amy, I hope you're feeling good. Have you got your coffee there in front of you?
I actually got my tea. It's a mix of green tea and peppermint tea.
Wow, that sounds very calming. I'm sure that's not what I need right at the moment. I don't need anything calming. So I'm here with Amy Lanci. Amy is a communications consultant who has a real simple mission. She wants to help you to tell your story so that you can honor the life you've lived and tell the world about it in the way to activate your know, like, trust factor and uncover the gold brimming within you, which I think is a wonderful aim, Amy. And so let's start with my usual question to you. You know, who is the person that you're trying to reach with that message and trying to work with?
The person that I'm trying to reach with that message are someone who's a coach or a consultant of any industry, really. Someone who is trying to rise above the noise. And the reason why I picked this target market is because I know that there are a lot of coaches, and my very first business was as a health coach, and I failed in that business, knowing that there were a lot of health coaches and there were a lot of coaches, and it was just really hard to rise above the noise. And it was also really hard for me at the time to articulate what was it that I really did in a way that people understood, in a way that stood out too. So the person I'm really looking for are people who struggle with what do you do, like how do you answer that. It's something that causes a lot of anxiety in people.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I was having a conversation only this morning with somebody that was struggling, and you know the one thing that they were struggling to do was to be succinct about what they did. They could talk. I mean, in fact, we ended up, and it took Tim 2 hours to explain what he did, and eventually I boiled it down to about 3 sentences. He went, "Yeah, that's it." And I went, "Okay." But it's taken you 2 hours to explain it. That's too long if somebody wants to get to know you quickly, isn't it? 2 hours is just too much. You've got to know that in such a way that you can actually explain it fairly succinctly.
Yeah, no, exactly. You got to be able to explain it in 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. I mean, even one sentence. The biggest messaging lesson I ever learned was from a friend of mine who is a voice and messaging coach, and we did this years ago. She said, Amy, if you can tell a third grader what you do, that would be amazing. And so I remember sitting in the car with her for 10 minutes. I was completely silent. And I just finally said, I help business owners find the right words to describe what they do. And then she looked at me, she said, bingo. I was like, okay, whew, I got it.
I love it. I love it. So that really leads us to the sort of second question around here, which is what is it that those business owners have tried to do on their own, and have not necessarily succeeded as well as they might without the sort of help you give them.
They try to come up with a really impressive elevator pitch. So they'll, and when I mean impressive, I mean, it'll have all kinds of flowery language. And really, when it comes down to it, it looks like a 5-minute commercial in a 30-second time slot. So in their mind, the more words they add, the more impressive they sound. And really, they lost people within the first 10 seconds. So that's an issue, because if they're in a room, I know things are opening up now. So if they're in an actual room, or if they're in a Zoom room where everyone is giving their elevator pitch, boom, 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 and you're one of the people who are just spouting a lot of words, people are not going to remember you, unfortunately. And then they're looking at networking groups being like, I don't know if networking groups are really my thing. I don't know if I really should be here. And the truth is that depending on the group, obviously your people could be there and they could not be there. But the most important thing is that if people are not coming to you to at least talk to you after you give your elevator pitch, even if they end up being a business colleague and not a prospect, there's something going on there. And then you end up talking about your business in a silo, in a vacuum, and then you're wondering why is nothing working. maybe I'm not meant to do this. And then that gets to dangerous territory of, I'm going to probably give up on my dream. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You just need to seek help.
Yeah, no, I love it. Okay, I love it. So, and this is where I hope you're gonna talk us through something that's really quite wonderful here. You have got you've got a like from one of the previous guests on the podcast, from Aideen Nibriada-Wolper, who's watching us at the moment, and she's just loving what you're saying. And I suspect that's something that Aideen really does resonate with, because she does a lot of great vocal coaching as well. I don't know if you've serious stuff, but I know you've got a great free resource that I'd like to sort of just talk about now, which is now going across the bottom of the screen, and that's from Milk Crate Mastermind. Do you want to just talk us through what's that valuable free resource that you've got at Milk Crate Mastermind?
So essentially, the Milk Crate Mastermind it's a membership program that I started about a year ago, and it's a safe space where business owners can work on their messaging in a group setting. And so while it is a membership program, I allow everyone to come for one meeting as a guest, with free of charge. So that way they can just check us out and see what our process is. And I feel like I need to take a moment, Stuart, to talk about why did I name the Mastermind the Milk Crate? Because I know some people are like, that's not sexy, that's not pretty. Like, why did you name it after some object that we store things in and that we use as a stepping stool sometimes? And the reason why I named it that is because 2 years before I started the Mastermind, I had a vision of someone standing on a milk crate in a public square. And when they were standing on that milk crate, they were using it as if it was their own stage. And they were speaking their heart out. And it was just an emphasis that my mission in life is to make sure that people are heard. And so I went on to create a few different other programs before I actually jumped on this vision, because I was given no instruction manual whatsoever. And then I recognized that when I went to networking groups, I noticed that people would say their elevator pitches or talk about what they did. And it was it basically is the arena. Like, people are going to either react or not react. And then when you're left wondering how to change an elevator pitch, when you see that people don't resonate, you don't know how to change it, because no one's actually coming up to you saying, I love what you said about this, but I wish you had talked about this. Not as many people are going to do that. Maybe that some good Samaritan will, but most people will just say, or, oh, I really want to talk to that person. And so I created the Mastermind to be that practice arena, to be that place where someone can answer the questions that we ask them, and then answer to the best of their ability without judgment. And then we, as the facilitators and the other participants, can give that real-time feedback of, hey, you know what? I really liked it when you said this, but this other thing you said made it really confusing. So maybe, don't mention that part, or maybe just say this part in a different way. It's that's the value that we bring as a mastermind as a whole, because we give that real-time feedback, because that's what we are designed for.
I think that's a brilliant safe space. I love those ideas, because we so often, if you can just allow yourself to be exposed to some friends who will give you that honest feedback. So often we go to people who are our friends and contacts, and they won't necessarily tell us the complete truth. But actually, if you get to a group of people like that who are all building each other up and trying to learn from each other, you can get some really good, honest feedback that you will be able to use. And so long as it's taken in the right way, I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think that's wonderful. And as soon as I saw Milk Crate, I got it. I knew what you were trying to say with Milk Crate. It's obvious when you think about it. It is a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone for far, far greater things. So
yes.
I don't think to explain why Milk Crate. I think Milk Crates are sexy. I really do. I think they're great.
Thank you. I'm glad. I love that. We should make that into a meme. Like, I think Milk Crates are sexy.
I think they're brilliant. So just is there a particular book or concept or program of activities which have really inspired you that you think you should like to pass on to the audience watching and listening?
Oh, I love that you had this question as part of the interview, because what came up immediately was Brene Brown's TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability. Because and then the reason why that popped up is because it's been so influential in my life as someone who was always emotionally sensitive. I always thought that was not a great thing growing up because it made me vulnerable to other people, and then therefore that was a bad thing. But then when I saw Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability, I mean, personally, I was like, oh, I feel so vindicated now. Like, I feel like I have a superpower. And then also just when we are working on ourselves, when we are working on our communication, it's not just words and not just projection, not just delivery. It is all of that. But really, to be able to communicate, you have to be willing to have a certain degree of vulnerability, because in that vulnerability, you allow people to see the human side of yourself. So often we think that, oh, if I put on this mask and it's a wall, then people are going to like the wall and like me enough that we're all going to move forward. And, business is business, but if people don't trust you, if they can't see the person that you are, they're not going to take a chance on you. And so there does need to be a certain degree of vulnerability when it comes to communicating to your audience. And also when you're working on your messaging, when you're working on what you do, you have to be vulnerable enough to be willing to accept feedback from other people, because that's another thing. Like sometimes feedback is hard to receive, but if it's coming from a place of truth and it's coming from people who are really rooting for you, and also if you're able to embrace that rejection, then it's easier to see, okay, this is what I need to work on, and then grow from there.
It's sometimes difficult as business owners for us to put our ego to one side and accept that feedback. We often don't want to seem vulnerable, but actually to use feedback as a positive, to use it as a way to say, you don't make mistakes, you just learn. Exactly. That's the important thing is, if you ever just allow a failure or something like that to pull you down, you've used it in the wrong way. You need to allow failure, or you need to allow feedback to be the thing that makes you grow. Once you've done that, that's a huge step forward.
It really is. And that's actually the second principle in the milk crate, embrace rejection, because we know that, sometimes when we hear something negative or something constructive, we take it as, ooh, arms up, shields up. We have to fight or be defensive or run away. And really, it's about just hearing what the other person has to say. And then you can figure out what to do with it after that. Yeah. That alone is growth.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like that. That's growth. So I've asked you questions, and I guess right at the moment there's one question that you're thinking, well, he really should ask a much better question than the ones he's asked so far. So what is the question you would like me to have asked you, which I haven't? And then once you've asked that question, how would you like to answer it?
So one question that I wish you would have asked me, which it came up earlier, was, how does someone go about talking about what they do such that a third grader would understand?
Good question.
and what I have to say to that is, in order to put that together, you got to think about, okay, first think about the audience. And when you think about your audience, what is a title you can give them that is at most 1 or 2 words? So in my case, I said business owners, or you could say coaches, or you could say consultants. So that way it forces you to, name the audience with 1 or 2 words, and then think about what is the ultimate problem that they are struggling with. So for me, it was, okay, people are really struggling with figuring out what they do. So describing that is tough, right? They don't know. They don't know how to say that into words. So if you're thinking about your audience, like what is the problem that is number one on their mind? And so if you just are able to say, I help, or some verb, and then the audience, and then the problem, then you get the third grade statement.
Great way of breaking it down. I love it, Amy. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us at the It's Not Rocket Science, 5 Questions Over Coffee. I'm just going to finish by saying, if you, a bit like Aideen just now, we're wanting to be able to get a hold of advance notice of when we have great people like Amy on the call, so that you can pop in and maybe ask questions or make comments in real time. You can subscribe to our mailing list, and that's at tca.fyi. That's tca.fyi/subscribe. That gets you onto the list, so that each Tuesday when we do these, I give you an email and lets you know who's coming on, and so that you can prepare and you can come and listen in. And you get to meet wonderful people like Amy. Amy, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us here on It's Not Rocket Science, 5 Questions Over Coffee. Thank you so much for telling us about some of those great tips. Really look forward to seeing how many people get into that Milk Crate Mastermind and improve their message so much better.
Thank you so much, Stuart. This was awesome.
Thank you.